Yes, welcome back. Episode 29 of Double Coverage Sports Talk, presented by Elevated Sports alongside Luke Heaton. I'm Mitch Mason. Thank you for spending part of your week with us and the 29th installment of this podcast, a podcast that we started over a year ago that we've been made painfully aware we need to change the logo, apparently, by in-house.
We got quite humbled prior to this episode.
Graphic designer, photographer extraordinaire, Clay Taylor. Big shout out to Clay. I know he listens.
Of course.
Always.
Him and the Ohio State Heisman running back.
Who?
Oh, man, just a joke that did not land. We did a...
Oh, you're talking about the Heisman, right?
The Heisman, yeah.
As Logan just comes on in and...
Oh, yeah. We just start. You guys can walk in. Of course. Mm-hmm. We just started. We would welcome you guys to come in. Hey, what does my label say on the website?
Ouch. At the end of your second full year here, you're still going to be intern Luke. Intern reporter Luke.
That's
right?
Reporter Luke. Come on now. Howdy, though. Welcome.
Yeah. What's up, guys? So anyway, back to it. We were talking about a joke that didn't land. We're talking about Archie Griffin, right?
Archie Griffin.
Okay.
Who we made a joke a few episodes ago that he does listen.
Yeah, that was a...
And I was going to land, and then we pulled up, or pulled down, if you will.
You know what? Funny story about that is this is off to just an interesting start to episode 29. You talk about coming into land. My dad and I were once on a flight to Omaha where the pilot legitimately forgot to put down the landing gear. We got over the fence that delineates the airport property, right?
Uh-huh.
And I mean, we are mere like 300-400 feet from the ground. We are not high up there at all. And all of a sudden you feel the throttle, get pushed and you're, kind of leaning back in your seat and you're like, what the heck? We were about to land. Well, we do a big circle and all of a sudden you feel... My dad and I looked at each other and went, oh my gosh. We just almost went belly up on the tarmac. That was there was a lady next to us that, oh man, she had some things to say, not only for the pilot then, but also when we were getting off the plane, when he sheepishly has to open the door. And yeah, that was interesting. So 29 episodes.
Episode 29.
Double Coverage Sports Talk. Be on the lookout for a new logo. Maybe in the near future. I don't know. If someone wants to design a logo for us, hit us up.
Yeah.
But today is not about Logan Lees. I'm sure he would love for it to be. It is about some Major League Baseball. We are in spring training, some NCAA basketball, and then another lesson is on tap for you guys as well. And we want to start in spring training because there's a lot of news that's revolving around Major League Baseball right now. And it all has to do with the big money contracts. There are kind of three that are either on the table or have been given out right now. Manny Machado gets 10 years, $300 million from the San Diego Padres. He'll play third base over there. And then you just recently had another third baseman in the NL West, Nolan Arenado, who, man, if you're a Rangers fan, that really, really hits you hard. Got re-signed 8 years, $260 million. There's an opt-out after 3 years. Yeah. Manny Machado's opt-out is after 5. And if you're following this little discussion at all, you know that the missing piece is Bryce Harper, and there are all kinds of rumors flying around there. To start, I want to know what you think about the mega contract in general. You don't see these kind of contracts in football or basketball. Take me through what you think of these contracts and maybe compare them to the other sports.
Well, it's interesting. It's like baseball... I don't know. With baseball, there's no salary cap, so money is not really an issue. It's not quite to the level of European soccer where the richest teams win.
Yeah, no kidding.
Where you just, if you have the money to pay, you get the players. But I mean, like, for the players' perspective, a 10-year contract is great. They know where they're living for the next 10 years. If you're a young guy, possibly start your family there. I mean, it's comfortable. And if like a Bryce Harper, if he ends up in San Francisco, for example, I mean that's a region where he's comfortable with and he knows. Mm-hmm. So from a player's perspective, it's awesome. But from a team's perspective, man, it's a trap.
Yeah.
It is a trap because you think of, like we've said before, A-Rod with the Rangers. He was gone after 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
You think of a Robinson Cano in Seattle. That's
Well, that didn't work.
no. But I guess I don't know much about the behind the scenes of why teams. Maybe this is the only way to get players. Like players are demanding these 10-year deals, 8-year deals. But for a team, it's kind of like a trap.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Justin Verlander went on, I believe, Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and he was just outraged at kind of how the system plays out, but not from the perspective that you and I would think at, right? You and I raise our eyebrows at these massive contracts. Oh my goodness, is that player worth it?
Mm-hmm.
Justin Verlander wants every MLB team to just be lining up to shell out these kind of contracts because he believes that, hey, Bryce Harper is the best right fielder out there. Manny Machado is the best third baseman out there. You should be willing to pay to get these players. But I just think it's interesting from an organizational perspective. I mean, that's how everything is run. From Justin Verlander's perspective, his contract's up at the end of this year. So he would like another contract, I'm sure.
Of course.
But when you look at what the front office has to deal with, we've talked about failed mega contracts in the past, specifically with A-Rods. And I just don't understand why you are putting this kind of investment in a player who is a very, very good player, yes. But as we've seen in baseball, I mean, production can fluctuate from year to year. Now, like with Manny Machado, it's not like his glove is going to fall off the face of the earth. But Bryce Harper's bat last year was non-existent up until after the All-Star break. I mean, the only real reason that he was in the Home Run Derby is because the Home Run Derby was in Washington.
Yeah, and his name is Bryce Harper.
Exactly. I mean, the dude is on the cover of MLB The Show 19, which they've got to be sweating right now because the whole premise behind their promotion for this game is where's Bryce Harper going to land?
Uh-huh.
Where is Bryce Harper going to land? And I guess that's what I want to get into in just a second. But, from my perspective, if I'm in, John Daniels' shoes for the Texas Rangers, I'm not willing to go out and give anything north of 5 or 6 years just because, whatever ends up happening, if the player demands a trade, he's not performing, he doesn't respond well to the clubhouse, he just doesn't play well in your ballpark, whatever the case, you're stuck with him unless you can trade him. And I think while some teams may be not increasingly, but still willing to give out those contracts, you're telling me trading one of those contracts is still on the table? I think that's really, really doubtful. It
puts a hard limit on what you can do at trade deadlines and free agency. I mean, if you're a team that's completely bought in on a player like Bryce Harper or an Arenado, I mean, go for it. And if you're confident that you already, I guess it depends on the team if they already have pieces there. If you already have guys locked up, and now you're just going to add one more guy and lock him up, and you're confident in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, I mean, by all means, go for it.
Right.
But for a team, like you said, the Rangers, it's a complete unknown. Why add something that just limits what you can do in the offseason, where the next few offseasons and next few trade deadlines are of crazy importance?
Well, and you talk about the Rangers because that's our local team. The Rangers have been one of the most lethargic teams in free agency in recent years. I mean, it's the Rangers and the Cowboys seem to run off the same philosophy in free agency that, we'll find a mid-level guy that can come in here. He's on the back half of his career, like a Lance Lynn.
Yeah,
3 years, we'll give him $30 million, and we'll flip a coin. We'll see what happens. It gets a little bit frustrating as a fan when you were so close. I mean, one strike away multiple times in 2011, and now you're seeing kind of the ownership back away from spending big dollars. Obviously, they're putting up a new stadium, which the taxpayers are paying a large majority of. But at some point, you've got to be willing to take that leap. It's just where's the fine line between taking a leap and giving someone north of $350 million for 10 years, which brings us to Bryce Harper. He's rumored to be going a number of different places. Obviously, the Phillies are and have been the main contender for his name in recent weeks. It was a really, really slow market. He was meeting with a couple of teams. It was reported that he wanted to be a Yankee, but the Yankees have so much money tied up in the outfield already. They just gave Aaron Hicks a 7-year, $70 million contract extension. So they weren't going to go out there and pursue him. Then it came down to the Phillies with the Nationals counter. Reportedly, the Nationals did offer him a $300 million contract, and as much publicly as he said, oh no, if they want me back here in Washington, like, I'm willing to come back. I think it's pretty obvious he wanted out of Washington. The Dodgers are near his hometown of Las Vegas. The Giants are in it. The Padres were reportedly in it for a little bit. But now, as it sits right now, it appears that it's kind of a two-way battle, unless the Giants are kind of serious about making a huge offer. But the Dodgers want to offer him a lot of money for not a lot of years. And I have a buddy who I'm hoping he'll be on this podcast one of these days, Richard Zane, who did hockey with me. He keeps saying 3 years, $500 million. And I think he's crazy for that. But
3 years?
That's what he keeps saying.
$500 million?
That's what he keeps saying. And, I mean, Magic Johnson could pull that off. You know he could. If they really wanted him, if they really wanted to go win a championship, it would be ludicrous, but it might get the job done for you. The Phillies, their offer is supposed to be about $330 million for 10 years. And, you know, Bryce has been so unwilling to commit, to just pick one place or the other. There are rumors that Mrs. Harper, his wife, which I believe he married last year, doesn't like Philly. Shocker. So, you know, I think living on the West Coast, I don't fault Manny Machado for signing with the Padres. San Diego's beautiful. They suck at baseball right now, but it's beautiful. And they have a great farm system. So, you know, maybe in 3-4 years, you have a playoff contender there.
Yeah.
For the Dodgers, it's obviously win now mode. It's been win now mode for the last 4 or 5 seasons. And obviously they've come up empty in the World Series the last 2 years. But you know, the question is, how much money would you have to shell out to get Bryce to turn down a long-term deal, which he has been stating that he wants for a number of months now? What's that price point that makes him go, okay, we'll do a 3-year deal. We'll do a 4-year deal.
It's so weird because at one point last week it felt like Philly was about to land a deal with him.
Yes.
And there was reports like he's on the cusp of signing with Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And then now it's back to everyone has a shot of the teams he's considering. Yeah. I think he'll end up West Coast just because that's the region where he's from, grew up in Vegas. He's going to make a ton of money. I mean, the same, like you said with Machado, it's San Diego. They're not great at baseball. But, man, he's getting a ton of money. It's San Diego.
Yeah.
And there is you could make an argument for a good future. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm sure he understands. Yeah, these next 2, 3, 4 years may be rough. But I'm going to be loved, and I'm going to get paid playing what I love to do.
Yeah.
I personally would love to see Bryce Harper in a Giants uniform, just because it would look amazing. Him hitting bombs into the water.
Well, yeah.
Another lefty.
Yeah.
So that would be cool, even though the Giants will haunt me forever.
I was going to say, how can you root for anything great to come out of the Bay Area?
Well, maybe this isn't great for him, like we've been saying. Maybe I'm rooting for them to sign Bryce Harper because it's going to end up hurting them in the future. But regardless, I mean, I'm glad, I think you would be too, that the Rangers aren't in this discussion.
Yeah, I definitely am.
But it's interesting.
When Tony Romo, Bryce Harper jokingly tweeted that Tony knows where he's going.
Yeah.
And Tony tagged the Rangers. I mean, I knew it wasn't actually for real, and as exciting as it would be to sign someone of that magnitude, like, I get to play GM on the show all the time when I play that game, and, whenever you go into free agency and you sign a big-name guy, it's exciting because, hey, you've got this brand name now playing a position for you. But at the same time, we're terrible.
Yeah, what do you do?
We have all 5 guys in our projected rotation right now, have had Tommy John surgery at least once. We are quite literally the walking wounded in Texas. I'm not kidding.
Are you serious?
I am dead serious. Yeah, your starting rotation right now is Mike Minor, Lance Lynn, what is his name? Edison Volquez. You have, and I'm going to draw a blank on the other 2 guys. There are two more guys who have gone under the knife for Tommy John surgery.
My gosh.
It's not great.
And also, it's not like basketball where you can sign a high caliber player, and then that player change the direction of the team.
Right.
Like, immediately. Like, yes, if the Rangers signed Bryce Harper, we would be better.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you have 8 other players at bat, plus you have a pitching rotation to think of. It's not like Bryce Harper would completely turn around the Rangers organization.
Right. Okay, so here's the projected, according to RotoChamp, here's the projected Texas Rangers rotation, right? Mike Minor, Tommy John surgery, 1 time. He is, last year he was 9-9, 4.03 ERA. Your second starter, right? Saturday night guy. Lance Lynn, 9-10 last year, 4.12 ERA. Shelby Miller, who at one time was the ace of the Atlanta Braves, he was traded to Arizona in exchange for my favorite guy, Sir Dansby Swanson. The Diamondbacks drafted Dansby in the summer of, what was that, 2015, I want to say? Yeah, 2015, because I went to Omaha right before I came to school. They immediately trade him that following offseason to Atlanta for Shelby Miller. He's supposed to be this revolutionary pitcher. He's going to anchor their rotation. The Diamondbacks are going to win 95 games and go to the playoffs. Shelby Miller has to have Tommy John surgery, and then the next 2 seasons, his average ERA was above 4.5. Last year, he was 4-8 with a 4.79 ERA.
Yikes.
Drew Smiley for the Cubs last year was 5-7 with a 4.5 ERA. And then you have Edison Volquez and Jason Hamill, who didn't do much, had cups of coffee, and both had 4.4 ERAs. So
no one sub 4.
No, yeah.
No one had a winning record.
No.
Minor was the best with 9-9.
The best was Mike Minor, and then Jason Hamill was 3-3.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Rangers fans,
Jason Hamill.
Let's go.
Jason Hamill had a 9.3 swinging strike percentage last year. That's it. Shelby Miller had an 8.5 swing and miss rate. That's it. There were a lot of barrels connecting with their fastball.
Sweet crack of the bat.
And we play in a hitters-friendly ballpark. Oh, the ERAs.
Rangers fans, get ready to catch a lot of home run balls. It won't be from Rangers players, but little kids will be sprinting every inning to just secure a fun Angels or Astros home run ball.
Yep. Yeah, it's a bleak outlook right now. The projection, according to this site, has the Rangers winning 71 games, last in the division.
Gee, what was last year? Last year was in the 70s, right? Like 78 maybe?
Yeah, we didn't get to 80 last year, I don't believe. So, yep, that's kind of tough. And it's going to test my patience this year because, with the Mavs, it's easier to go through a rebuild because you finally see guys like Donnie Nelson getting control and having sway in that draft room. When it comes to the Rangers drafts, an MLB draft is different anyway because you're allowed to take high school kids willy-nilly, and that's the strategy of a lot of teams, and that is certainly the strategy of the Texas Rangers. JD and his scouts love taking left-handed high school pitching. It doesn't matter if they throw hard or not, if they, have a decent frame on them and they had decent stats in high school, there's a good chance the Texas Rangers are going to come after you. And, that may pay dividends down the road, but the big knock on the Rangers developmental system has been they can't develop pitching. That's the biggest problem is we take all these highly touted guys out of high school or even college. I mean, Dylan Tate was throwing 97 out of UC Santa Barbara. We couldn't do anything with him. We sent him to New York, and all of a sudden he's one of the top prospects in their organization. Mm-hmm. And so, baseball is such a complex sport. It's like hockey where the minor league system and the draft system is just it's almost unwatchable on TV. They try to televise the first few rounds on TV, and it's boring. I try every single year.
Yeah.
And, I lose interest.
Especially, if you're someone that gets bored in like the 5th or 6th round of the NFL draft, don't bother tuning in for the NHL or MLB draft.
The thing is, you might have heard of Mr. Irrelevant in the NFL draft. I guarantee you had never heard of Cole Winn before we drafted him. However many years ago that was, 3 years ago.
Yeah. Plus, you're going to know 3% of the players getting drafted in MLB draft.
Ooh, if you know 3%, that might be generous. Well, you might be really in tune if you know 3%.
That's true.
It's brutal. So, point being, all of this started Man, this was just one long tangent. All of this started with the idea of the super mega contracts. Let me ask you this. Is there ever a player, like right now, he may not be a free agent right now, but is there a player on a roster right now that you would go, I would give that guy 10 years, whatever he wants? Or is there not a player that you would ever consider putting that much stock into?
My general answer, I mean, I'm against the 10-year deal in general, but if I were to give out a 10-year deal, positionally, it'd be to a pitcher.
Really?
I think I'd go pitching just because, and if you've got a guy, but 10 years is so long, so I'm going to run with this even though I wouldn't do it. But like 10 years, if you have a guy locked up that you know is going to throw 1.5 ERA every season,
like a Clayton Kershaw.
You have him. You can throw him 2 or 3 times in a series. I mean, yeah, go ahead and grab that guy. But I'm still team no 10-year deals.
Right. No, I would agree with that. And obviously, the worst case scenario is you sign a guy like Rick Ankiel to 10 years, and then he can't throw a strike. Just sends him to the backstop. So,
yeah.
I think the only guy that I would consider giving that kind of deal to is probably Mike Trout. He's just, I mean, he is a generational player. The dude hits nonstop. I mean, his slumps are minimal at the worst. And he's a generational defender in center field.
Yeah.
The guy can cover
also a
ground
great
like
guy in
business.
general.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's
not a diva.
No, he's not. I mean, he's from New Jersey, and, you know, he's very in tune with kind of his roots. I honestly would rather see Mike Trout go to the Phillies because he's a huge Philadelphia sports fan.
I would love to see him have success somewhere on a winning franchise.
Well, and that I really feel like, depending on who you listen to or read their projections, so like this site has the Angels finishing second. In that case, they might hang on to him. If it goes south like it did last year early, I don't see how the Angels don't end up moving. You could get an entire farm system.
Yeah.
For Mike Trout. I mean, when you think about what the Miami Marlins did this year, they traded 5 players last year. They got 38 prospects back.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Trout could get you 7, 8, 9 guys.
Oh,
realistically.
Easily. Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
But also like good guys. Like not just like cheap
You
prospects.
could get probably 2, I'm maybe exaggerating, but you could get 2 or 3 high-end guys, right? Guys in the top 15, maybe 12 top prospects of that other organization. And then if you just kept demanding, okay, we want left-handed pitching. All right, we want a third baseman. We want a catcher. If I have a chance to go get Mike Trout, sure, all right. And then if I know, all right, I can lock him up for a long time and he's going to be our guy. He wants to play here. He's going to have success here. Give you whatever you want. You know what I mean? So it's tough. I do think the Manny Machado deal, obviously the opt-outs are the team's biggest friend after they sign that. So if Machado is not having any sort of success in San Diego, he could opt out, or he could say, I'm not feeling it anymore. This is guaranteed money. I'm going to stay here in San Diego and take every penny of that $300 million. So it's a two-edged sword. It can bite you, or, Machado could get bored and opt out. Arenado, if the Rockies don't contend after 3 years, could opt out. He could go somewhere competitive. So all that to say, Rangers fans, be patient. MLB fans, you finally got what you wanted. The market finally moved, and you knew it was. I mean, last year you had a record number of guys, really good players, sitting on their hands until well after spring training started. Obviously, Harper hasn't signed, and so he's going to be a little late to the party. But regardless, the MLB market is just different. It's so much different than, NFL and NBA. And we may have, there have been talks that we may have another kind of issue with the collective bargaining agreement. Hopefully we don't have another strike like they've had numerous times in years past. But
my question is, do you think San Diego is done? I guess going forward,
I don't think Harper's going to San Diego. I really don't. I
think
it's
if we entertained the Mike Trout thing, and you talked about them having a good farm system. Is San Diego? Yes, they now they have a 10-year guy on their books, and that could be kind of hard to work with. But what would be a next move they could make?
Yeah, I don't think the Padres are there yet to where they could go get a Mike Trout and be like, okay, now we're set. I think the strength of that organization lies in They have, I mean, I was looking through the list of the top 200 prospects, which, my goodness, that must have taken forever to compile. But looking through that list, the Padres come up a number of times, and they have everybody from infielders to pitchers. They have some outfielders. I think the strength of that organization lies in their numbers. See who makes it through, who actually breaks through that AAA barrier and gets up to the major leagues, and you know, let's see you compete. Let's see you not finish last in the division. Let's see you take series from the Dodgers and the Giants before you go and make a big-time trade and give up all your prospects. So, yeah, I think the Padres are a couple years away, but I'm interested to watch them. They're like the Braves, right, who rebuilt through the draft, rebuilt through international signings. Right now the Rangers are, I believe, the richest team as far as international signing pool money, so there could be something that we do with that. But
the Marlins are trying to catch us with all their international stuff.
They just signed Victor Mesa, really athletic center fielder, to, I believe, the largest international signing bonus of like $6 million. So
wow.
Derek Jeter is taking a unique approach to rebuilding a team.
I remember last year, I mean, when they gave up
everybody,
I mean, we were like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But he, like you said, with like a Stanton, you can't rebuild with that contract.
No.
So you give him up, and I mean, if it works, yeah, I mean, they're literally building from the ground up.
Yes. All right, well, we'll go ahead and move on to basketball and give y'all something else to listen to here. Man, I think we wore out that contract discussion for sure, at least for a little bit. I am interested to see where Bryce Harper lands, and we'll be talking more baseball as we go along. And I think towards the end of spring training, I'd like to kind of predict the standings and do kind of like what we did with football and stuff like that. But moving over to college basketball, it has gotten kind of messy at the top. All of a sudden, Duke is losing games. Tennessee has lost some games. LSU has pulled a couple of upsets, and lowly Texas A&M had a run for a little bit there. We had won 4 or 5, but kind of got trounced on against LSU last night. What sticks out to you as we get towards the final stretch of the regular season and closer to the conference tournaments and ultimately March Madness?
Well, a few minutes ago, I got a notification that TJ Starks is out for the rest of the season.
Yes.
With a shoulder injury. Now, watching the game, I thought he hurt his wrist because he was grabbing his wrist and his forearm. I mean, he was dangling his shoulder too. Regardless, this is all semantics. He's out with a dislocated shoulder for the rest of the season. That's a tough blow. There's been talks that he could transfer, which I could see because there's not a team in America that wouldn't want TJ Starks with how dynamic and talented he is. I don't think he will. A&M will return everyone from this year's team besides Mekawulu, who was a graduate transfer this year. And we have a top 25 recruiting class coming in. So A&M can only go up from this season, which is the positive if we're trying to remain positive, all you Aggies out there. So that will be exciting. But tough to see TJ, but glad it's nothing too bad. He'll be back, and I hope dominant. Him and Savion Flagg need huge off seasons shooting the basketball.
Right.
A&M has to have a huge offseason developing perimeter shots and being able to hit shots in games in rhythm and big moments because that has severely limited A&M this season. But like you said, the top of the rankings is very, very interesting. Gonzaga's back to number 1. They're not, like John Puglisi said on the radio this week, Gonzaga isn't the best team in the country, but they're number 1. They're a very good team. I really want Gonzaga to win a championship. It's hard not to love Gonzaga and what Mark Few has done leading that program. But man, there are some really good teams we're gonna have to go through. We'll start with some Duke talk here.
Okay.
It's no secret that Zion Williamson is hurt. He should be back soon because it's only a grade 1 MCL sprain.
I heard a guy on the radio, I believe it was CBS Sports Radio, and to preface this, I'm not the most diehard college basketball fan. I do pay attention to it, and especially when it comes around March Madness time, I'm in front of a TV watching. But I don't necessarily know the players like you do or like John Puglisi does. So I heard on the radio after last week's podcast where we talked about Zion and made those jokes, a guy on the radio calling him Zion Williams.
Ow.
And I went, oh no. Was I adding son to his last name just errantly? Like, I could have sworn it was Williamson. So I, like, as soon as I stopped at a red light, pulled it up, checked. I was like, oh, gosh, wait a minute. CBS Sports Radio does not know the best player in
Okay,
college
you scared
basketball?
me there for a second because I thought you were about to say it's actually Williams.
No. It is
Okay,
Williamson.
yeah.
No, I wasn't wrong. It was the CBS guy. All of that to say, I freaked out for a second because I went, oh, my gosh. I said Williamson that entire episode.
Uh-huh.
And now I'm finding out on a radio station that I don't listen to. I was wrong. No, just kidding. CBS was wrong. Hire me.
But Zion Williamson is hurt. And so Duke just lost to Virginia Tech. Buzz Williams, man, is doing very good things at Virginia
Very
Tech.
good things.
Possible future A&M basketball coach, but it'd be hard to leave a Virginia Tech team that just beat Duke 2 times in a row for the first time in years.
They've beaten them the last 3 times to Blacksburg, I thought.
Maybe they have.
I think it's the last 3 times to Blacksburg that they've won.
Okay. Regardless, they've got a great player in Blackshear. Buzz Williams is a really good coach. There's been rumors that he wants to maybe get back into the state of Texas, and that would be a great hire. It would take some serious coin, probably about $4 million a year. But if A&M wants to pull a Jimbo and pay the money required to bring in a coach, by all means, because there is a great foundation at A&M. We just need a culture change. We've got pieces. We just need a culture change. But back to Duke. Duke cannot win a national championship without Zion Williamson on the floor. Statistically, it's night and day. Aaron Torres of Fox Sports Radio, he tweeted out, with Zion, Duke averages 85 points per game, forces 15 turnovers a game, and has a plus 6.6 rebound margin. Without Zion, Duke averages 73 points per game, forces only 9 turnovers, and has a 0.0 rebound margin.
Oh,
Zion does it all.
not great, Bob.
Yeah. Zion does it all. He rebounds, he plays defense, he brings energy. He is dynamic on offense. So without him on the floor, you've got RJ Barrett taking way too many shots. You've got players that don't really see the floor as much. They're getting more minutes. It just puts a little bit too much pressure on the shoulders of guys like Cam Reddish and RJ Barrett who aren't ready to really carry that load. Zion is that piece. I mean, any team loses a guy like Zion. It's an amazing player. I mean, obviously the team's going to be worse. But yes, Duke has a ton of talent outside of Zion Williamson, but they need him to win a national championship. Now I will move to the Big 12, and I'm just going to get this over with because it's just tough to talk about as a KU fan.
Yeah.
Basically, Texas
the streak's
Tech.
probably over.
The streak is probably over unless a miracle happens. So similar to last year, except this year it's Tech and Kansas State. Last year, Tech controlled its own destiny in winning the Big 12, but they choked.
They really choked.
So I think KU and Tech tied. Yeah, KU had a share. They tied because KU won a squeaker of a game in Lubbock to climb back into it. But Tech and K-State control their own destiny this year to win the Big 12. Kansas is at 10-5, Tech at 10-4, and K-State at 11-4. Remaining games for Tech: OSU, TCU, Texas, and Iowa State. Side note: Iowa State's coach has been suspended for 2 games for ridiculous language towards an official after a game.
Oh no!
It was either Iowa or Iowa State. I think it was Iowa State, but I mean, multiple usage of the F word.
Oh.
Not friend or fun. Not those F words.
This is the only F words I
but
use.
Yes, because we are pious and righteous here at
Stay tuned for the lesson after this.
Not on pride, because we're humble. Anyway, so Tech will win those games. K-State has Baylor, TCU, and Oklahoma. Oklahoma has an atrocious Big 12 conference record, but they're still position. They're still right now. Lunardi's bracketology. They're still apparently going to make the NCAA tournament.
Wow, even without Trae Young on the team to sway all the votes?
Last year, they shouldn't have made it. And they lost first round, and I picked the upset. Oh, I'm drawing a blank.
Everybody.
Rhode Island?
Rhode Island. Yeah, it was Rhode Island. Because it was they were
it was a 7 and
11.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Rhode Island was the 7 seed, yeah. Oklahoma.
No, well, that doesn't 7 and 10 play. 11 and 6? Maybe it was 7 and 10.
I thought Oklahoma was an 11 seed. Anyway, we're splitting peas.
Yeah. Interesting. Splitting peas. I haven't heard that before.
I think I meant hairs.
I'm going to... Anyway, slowly making our way through the Big 12 here. But, so, KU has won the Big 12 regular season title the last 14 years. That is a Division I record. And it's looking like 15 is not going to happen. Yeah. KU, it's a mixture of ineligibility with Silvio De Sousa, ineligible for the season after this, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
If anyone, I'll go into this another day. If anything, Bill Self should be the one taking the flack and the punishment for recruiting violations, not a kid. And then injuries with, wow.
Oh, don't tell me
my
you're blanking on
fandom
your roster.
My fandom is just brutal. Oh, yes, the big guy, Azubuike.
The big guy.
Azubuike with another hand injury. And that was really tough to see him go. Really hard worker, has another hand injury. He's been battling that. But he was out. And then KU just has 0.000% three-point shooting. So Bill Self, for what he's done with this KU team, I mean, I guess I feel guilty being upset at KU still as a top 15 team in the country. Relatively, it's been a tough season.
Yeah.
Looking at it from the outside in, it's still a good KU team. Regardless, they will lose the Big 12 unless a miracle happens, and K-State and Tech both lose 2 games.
It could happen.
KU has to win out, and Tech and K-State both have to lose twice. So it's probably not going to happen. But regardless, yeah. It's so weird because A&M beat Kansas State, and they have a strong
chance. It wasn't really even close either.
Yeah, strong chance to win the Big 12.
Yeah.
KU, it's so weird about KU. They have 7. I think they're 21-7, but they have the number 1 strength of schedule. They're second in the country in quadrant 1 wins with 10, behind Michigan State, who has 11, which is ridiculous. I'll get into Michigan State in a second. But KU has amazing wins. They beat Tennessee. But they just have some dumb, lazy losses. But that's
they lost both games to Tech, didn't they? Or they split it?
They definitely
lost.
They definitely lost the recent one by 29 points.
Yeah,
which was horrible. Yeah, KU and Lubbock's. I mean, Lubbock's a tough place to play, but my gosh, 29 points. It was bad from the get-go.
Yeah.
Moving on to the SEC. Which this is kind of what Mitch and I have been watching a lot covering this season. Kentucky is making their way to the top of the SEC.
Again.
Yes. It's so interesting because 3 years ago, it wasn't even no question Kentucky was the leader of the SEC.
Right.
And now you've got teams like LSU and Tennessee, maybe a South Carolina sprinkled in there, that play really good basketball. And for a while, I mean, Tennessee was the number 1 team in the country for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And now they lost to LSU, who's a good team, and they are losing momentum. Kentucky throttled them.
Yeah, real quick on the Tennessee-LSU game.
Oh, yeah.
With the official.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on that? Because it's impossible to hire someone that has, if you're into college athletics at all, it's impossible to hire someone who's had no previous biases or fandoms, right? But how do you let a guy who is still an active LSU fan referee one of the biggest collegiate basketball games of the year and make a call that defines the game from 80 feet away with 0.6 seconds left?
It was a bad call.
How does that happen?
It's tough to ruin that for kids. It was a bad call. It was
worse than the pass interference no call. Now we're splitting peas.
Yeah. But it was obviously rim violation, rim interference or basket interference. But I didn't know that about the official being. I didn't know about that bias.
Old Twitter found out the next day.
Wow.
Real quick.
Regardless, LSU came out with that win in overtime.
They did. They worked hard for that one.
And then LSU lost to Florida. So LSU and Tennessee, they're wavering a little bit, and Kentucky is continually to get better and better and better. Kentucky's got PJ. I'm not sold on PJ Washington. A lot of people are. I'm not.
Well, he's streaky.
He is streaky. I don't trust his ability to shoot the ball. I don't think he should be a lottery pick. If I could see later first rounder. I don't think he's a lottery pick player, but he's playing really well, rebounding, good defender, and Kentucky's got players who just know their role, and they rebound amazing. Reed Travis annihilated A&M. He's literally like a football player. He just rim runs and dominates offensive rebounds. So Kentucky's playing really well. Calipari's got his guys playing very, very well, and so it's. I'm not sure who will win the SEC. LSU and Tennessee. Tennessee has the hardest schedule to finish the conference play. Tennessee and Kentucky still play again. They play this Saturday, which will be a very good game to watch. LSU, not a very hard schedule. Kentucky, not a very hard schedule to finish. So Tennessee, it's going to be tougher for them to win the SEC this season.
Yeah, they've got to go on the road to Ole Miss, and then home against Kentucky, home against Mississippi State, and then at Auburn to end it.
Yeah,
it's not easy.
And an Auburn team that has fallen off the deep end. But
yeah,
and
they
looking
were
at
hot when they came here.
Looking at bracketology, they're listed as an 8 seed right now. If I'm any team in the country, if I'm picking brackets, I'm picking Auburn to win that first round.
Yeah.
An Auburn team that on paper with the talent they have should not even be close to an 8 seed.
Bruce Pearl should scream his way.
They should have been probably around a 4 or 5 seed.
Yeah.
So
it was like A&M last year, right?
Yeah.
A&M had the talent to be
A&M was 5th in the country at one point.
Yeah, they had the talent to easily be a lock for a 2 or 3 seed. They wound up being, it was a 7 seed, right?
Yeah.
And kind of a squirrely one at that, right? There were people that were talking about.
Well, they lost. They did not start SEC playoff very well.
No.
And
then we lost in overtime to Alabama, right?
Yep. And then A&M had to string some wins together at the end of conference play to put themselves in a position to be a 7 seed.
Yeah.
But
so very, very similar in that you have a ton of talent on that team, and they may be an 8 seed. You don't want to match up with them in the first round.
No.
That would be a death trap.
And going off of this year, now let me say, hear this with a grain of salt, because typically, historically, any bracket argument I give you, do the exact opposite, because I'm never correct.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to be correct about something, it could be this. This year, be absolutely trigger happy picking upsets, because there's a jumble at the top, and then there is so much change throughout the year in teams. Like in Auburn, it's an 8 seed. Yep. You've got really good teams that will be seeded higher or lower. So there's a position for crazy upsets. You've got teams that have losing records in conference play, like an OU, that will make the tournament. And then you've got the whole discussion of really good teams like a Murray State getting at-large bids if they don't win their conference tournament. So this year could be upset city, which I'm excited for.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to make brackets fun.
Yeah, because even like a Florida, if they make the tournament, like an LSU, a Tennessee, they're not immune to these losses.
That is going to be a very fun episode. We're going to have to do bracketology because, let's see here. It obviously starts the week of spring break. The first game is on the Tuesday? Is it Tuesday? Tuesday and Wednesday are the play-in games, and it's Thursday, Friday's round 1.
Thursday, Friday's round 1.
So we'll have to figure out a way.
We'll probably have to do like a Sunday or Monday episode.
Yeah, and because the brackets will come out on Sunday.
Yeah.
And so we'll have to find out a way, even if it's just at my house and not in this luxurious studio.
Yeah.
We'll find a way. But we'll have to bring bracketology to you guys.
This year should be very fun. And then also Dalton said he may want to come on, or that'd be a really good episode to have Puglisi on.
I did talk to him about that. That may be in the works. We'll see.
Okay. Anyway, so not really sure where I was going with the SEC / tournament.
It's just kind of, it's top heavy in that I don't think you'd argue that there's a team better than Kentucky, Tennessee, or LSU. All of them are dangerous, especially Kentucky. Do you think that Kentucky has what it takes to win it all, to win a national title?
If the thing that plagues them is inconsistency, and they've been consistent as of late, if PJ Washington's playing really well and they're hitting their outside shots, man, they're dangerous. Yeah. But man, like you said, it's top heavy. But then there's teams sprinkled in, like a Michigan State, who has 2 of their best players injured right now, and they have 11 quadrant 1 wins. Yeah. Joshua Langford and Nick Ward are out. Langford's out for the season. Nick Ward will be back by tournament time. You've got a Marquette at 10, Houston at 8th in the country at 26-1.
Yeah.
So how do you go about Houston when you're picking them in the bracket? How do you value lesser competition? I mean, I don't know, but they're 26-1. You've got a Nevada who has been quiet as of late. I feel like a lot of people aren't talking about Nevada.
Yeah. Other than Aaron Torres.
Yeah. So I mean, it's Buffalo's at 21. I mean,
Wofford at 24. Yeah.
Washington.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this year in college basketball. That's what I love. It's because it's so fluid.
Right.
And it's very exciting. There's a constant change. Yeah. Keeps you on your toes, which I guess college basketball is a great portal to view sports in.
Yeah, it's like if you play, NCAA, either basketball or football, and you do a dynasty and you go 5-6 years deep, and all of a sudden you have like Arkansas State is the second team in the country, and you're like, how? Okay, cool. We're just gonna keep going with that.
Yeah. So we will see. I mean, March and April have to be 2 of the greatest sports months for me. With you've got championship week, all the conference tournaments, followed by March Madness, then the Masters. So, I mean, if you, I almost need to have like an appointment website if you want to hang out with me, because I will be firmly sitting on my couch potatoing all day, watching sports and sportsing as hard as possible.
Yeah, I always have to come up with it. This year I don't have class on Monday, so it won't be an issue. But usually in the past, I've had to come up with creative ways to justify not going to class on opening day.
Yeah. The workouts walking to the fridge and back.
Exactly. Yeah, beautiful workout. But you're right. This is one of the best sports times of the year, other than probably football kicking off. I think this is the most exciting time to be a sports fan, for sure.
It's a lot of fun.
Anyway, I think that's going to do it for our sports coverage of the episode 29, and we'll move into Luke's lesson now. Luke, where are you taking it?
So we talked Zion last week, and you brought up the parable, or the rich young ruler. Yeah. And we're going to continue along the Zion route, but go the parable of the talents and relate it to that. So Zion's still hurt. I don't doubt that he's going to come back and play. Duke's come out and say there's been no talks about him sitting out. But Zion gets hurt, and then a lot of people are saying, shut it down, wait till the NBA, save your health, protect your money that you'll get in the draft, just sit out and be safe. And man, hearing all these things really struck a nerve in me, because Jesus calls us to do the exact opposite in the Bible. So Matthew chapter 25 is Parable City, and the last parable in that chapter is Jesus giving the parable of the talents. Now, he's speaking about money, but then you could also interpret it as talents, because talent was how they weighed money, like talents of gold or talents of silver. Yeah. But, and a lot of people can over-spiritualize and say, oh, he's talking about talents as abilities as well. But I think he is as well. I mean, you can interpret it as got the general scope of being blessed with something and then either using it or bearing it. The
lesson carries over.
Yes. So I'm going to read the scripture and then kind of dive into it.
Sounds good.
So this is Jesus talking. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1. Actually, no, I'm not going to read this. I'm going to paraphrase, because this is that is a daunting excerpt. Basically,
I was going to say, that's a lengthy story there, but all right, here we go.
Not great for audio to just go ahead and read that. Regardless, so basically the parable is a man calls his servant and says, I'm going on a trip. Right. He gives 1 5 talents, 1 2 talents, and 1 talent, and says, he says, do each according to his ability. And then he went away. So the one who received 5 talents, he went out and turned it into 10. The one who received 2 talents went out and turned it into 4. The one who received 1 talent buried it in the ground because he didn't want to lose it. He didn't want to take that risk. And then the master gets back, and the servants go up to him, and the servant with 5 and 2 talents, who doubled their money, went back, and the master said, "Good and faithful servant, enter into my happiness." Mm-hmm. The one who received 1 talent, he was rebuked, and the master was upset, and then he was not able to enter in that happiness that the other servants were. So I think of this with Zion, it's kind of the same thing. Do you bury the talent you've given, the ability you've received, and with the out of fear of losing it, out of fear of possible injury or something happen, or do you use the talent, the abilities and talents you've been given, and then go do more with it? Mm-hmm. So I want to look at this from 3 different bullet points. So the first thing regarding talents and abilities is we've been given them. 1 Corinthians 12:4, which I should have had pulled up because you don't have it memorized. Sorry for that. Pause in the action.
I'm not gonna. Yeah, I was about to say I'm not gonna play like game audio.
All right. 1 Corinthians 12:4. There are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. And then keep reading. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and in everyone, it is the same God at work. So we've all been given talents and abilities. For the sports example, there's plenty of athletes. In non-sports, there's plenty of people that have different jobs, different skills. Even within basketball, there's plenty of players that have different talents and abilities. Zion has amazing talents and abilities. Some other players have different talents. Some other players are more sharpshooters. Outside of sports, there's plenty of people that are more great with finance, great with numbers. There's great teachers out there. We've been given all sorts of talents and abilities. So that's something to understand, that no matter who you are, you've been given talents and abilities.
Right.
God has blessed you with that. You don't have to be a Christian, a follower of Jesus, to have talents and abilities.
Sure.
You've been blessed with them at birth. The second thing is we are called to use those and not waste them. We're called to be stewards. 1 Peter 10, which I also don't have pulled up.
Is it 1 Peter 10 or 1 Peter 4:10?
1 Peter 4:10. That is correct, because there is not 10 chapters
I was gonna say.
in 1 Peter. 1 Peter 4:10, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. Now, the word here is steward. Mm-hmm. Now, this is the same thing that Adam and Eve, where Adam was given to be stewards of God's creation, to work, not to just have the creation in front of me like, all right, I'm going to do whatever I can to just make sure nothing happens to it.
Right.
I'm going to be stewards of it. It's like we're stewards of God's grace. We've been given grace. Now we're stewards of it, and now we use it to serve others. And we go bless other people with that same grace, and we're gracious towards others. So the same thing, like in the parable, the servants that were given talents, they're called to be stewards and then go serve others, to go make more and do something with it. And the servant that didn't do anything, he wasn't a steward of it. He was rebuked for it. So with Zion, is he a steward of his abilities? Or for people, with everyone, are we being stewards with what we've been given? Like, I guess for you, example, like you have been given a ability for attacking the airwaves, and you have a great sports knowledge, but are you being a steward of that? Are you just being like, all right, I'm just be content with this podcast. I don't want to chase my goals and dreams out of fear of rejection, or are you going to continue going outside of this podcast and go into bigger and greater things because you've been given that ability, or you're just going to settle with what we're doing here, which is great, but out of fear, I guess, like, think of me, like, obviously there's fear of rejection of applying places, of trying to do other things and then it not working out. But that can't be a reason for saying, all right, I'm just going to not use these talents and abilities I've been given. Look, there is risk. Obviously, there's risk. There was risk for the servants who were given the talents. There's risk for Zion. Mm-hmm. There's risk for us. But man, being a Christian is a risk.
Yeah.
It's clear that we will suffer as followers of Jesus. But Romans 5 says we're supposed to glory in that suffering. I mean, if we view suffering through the lens of, man, I get to have a tiny part of suffering that Jesus had. Like, that should fill us with joy that we get to suffer alongside him. We get to take up our cross daily. Like, we have to get through our heads as followers of Jesus that there is a risk and that we will suffer, but that suffering should lead with joy. We should suffer in joy, which is kind of, in a secular world, that doesn't go together.
Right.
But spiritually, and what Christ calls us to, they work perfectly, hand in hand. And the third thing is there are great rewards for being stewards and to using gifts. I won't go into the whole Revelation thing, but when you read Revelation, there's clear that there's two judgments, a judgment for those if you're saved or not, and then there's a judgment of the Christians where God looks at your works and what you did with the gifts he gave you. And you will be blessed with what you did. You will get rewarded in heaven for what you did. And then like there's gifts, there's a gift of you get to experience God more and grow in your relationship with God more. That is a huge gift of being stewards of the grace he's given you. The gift of blessing others. It's no secret that blessing others feels good. And secularly and outside of Christianity and scientifically, people are more happy giving than receiving. That has been proven that that is a better feeling. Not that we should chase that, but that, right. that is a gift for giving and serving people with the gifts and abilities you've had. So that's kind of what I have as what God brought to my mind of this whole Zion thing is, look, yeah, he can hang up, he can throw in the towel, but as Christians, we're not called to do that. Right. We're not called to throw in the towel with, I've been saved, I've been granted salvation, all right, now I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to risk being rejected, I'm not going to risk suffering. I'm going to pursue using and serving with the gifts and abilities I've been given. Right,
and I think to go along with that, it brings into question, what is your motivation, right? What was the motivation of the first two servants that went out and obviously put in work? They expended time and energy to make their master more money. The other one had the much easier path, right? He didn't want to do anything because he was afraid of losing it. He buried it in the ground, left it there, was able to dig it back up when his master returned. And so the question of motivation comes up, and obviously for Zion, it is, what is your motivation here? Are you scared in that you want to, secure your future monetarily, or are you going to continue to play because you just love basketball? Yeah. That's what you love doing. And so, even in the secular example, you find out, okay, what does he love more? Is he going to chase dollars, or is he going to continue to play basketball because that's what he wants? And obviously there's a healthy balance of both.
Of course.
But James 1:17 says that every good gift and every perfect gift is given from above. And so you have to remember as Christians, look, you're given specific talents and specific gifts. One of your specific gifts that, I can see, and I've had other people talk to me obviously with the lesson, is you have a gift of ministry. I think that's something that you obviously want to pursue, as we all should, not necessarily in an official capacity, but we're all called to minister and to witness, right? And so when you look at this parable, you see that these servants did it because they loved their master, because they wanted to give him this return. What was the motivation of the other servant? He was afraid of his master. He was just simply acting out of fear. He didn't want to upset him. He did nothing to go ahead and make him happy and bring him joy, but he simply reacted out of fear and hid the money. And so, as Christians and really as anybody, you can't live in fear. Risks are a part of life. Unfortunate things happen, but you can't just continually live in fear, worried, okay, what's going to happen to me today? Otherwise we'd never leave the house.
Yeah.
And so I think when it comes down to it, a good barometer to check our hearts here is, what is your motivation for your talent? What are you best at? How are you using it? And I think that's a great application to myself as I've been reading, different scripture passages and a specific book as well called Overcomer. That's one of the things that I've kind of learned as it's taking me through my prayer life. Well, what is my motivation to grow in my life of prayer? It's because I want to have a better relationship with God the Father, and I want to be more in tune with what he wants for me. I want to walk with him side by side every single day, not just, hey, God, it's lunchtime, I'd like to check in again. And so,
Yeah.
motivations are extremely powerful. They're like the rudder for a ship, right?
Mhm.
You don't necessarily see it because it's beneath the water, but at the same time, it's directing your course.
Come on.
And so that's all the analogies that I have for right now.
And that's a great point. Man, I'm going to use that. That's really good with the rudder.
That's probably not original. So,
Well, actually, James 1 talks about a rudder. Maybe it is original.
well,
Anyway, I think that's, well, maybe it's James 3 talking about the tongue. Anyway, your tongue is powerful.
yes, it is.
Speak wisely.
Yep.
Speak truth. That's a whole nother day.
Yes.
But what you talked about, what was their motivation? They wanted to make their master happy. And it's not like, all right, I want to make my master happy, and then I'm over here just depressed. But as long as my master's happy, well, what happened when their master's happy? They were invited to enter
Yeah, they're rewarded.
into the master's happiness. Master said, enter into my happiness. So it's not like we're just trying to serve someone, make them happy, and us over here just rejected and everything. We enter into that happiness. We serve with the gifts God has given us. We enter more deeply into God the Father and more deeply into that relationship. And it is more, it fulfills us. So I think that's a really good point you brought up.
Awesome. Well, I think that's about it for episode 29. This has been a good one.
Yeah.
Good, lengthy talk on baseball. We got college basketball done, and then a great lesson as always. Appreciate that, Luke. Next week, are we both in town? Yes, we are both in town.
Yeah.
I believe, because that's the week before spring break.
Mm-hmm.
We will have episode 30.
30.
We need to decide what we're going to do for the big 3-0.
That's right.
But, man, it's incredible that we've gotten 30 of these done in just over a year. So,
Man.
with winter break. And
Thank you for the loyal listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been incredible to grow from just an idea that Luke and I had. Hey, we both do podcasts separately. How about we do one together? And just your continued interaction with us, whether it's on Twitter or personal messages. We really, really appreciate that, and never want to let you guys forget that. It's awesome that you listen and have been on this journey with us. And man, about to hit episode 30. That's just incredible.
Yeah, and we appreciate you guys, like Mitch said, reaching out to us, encouraging us via Instagram, texting us, whatnot. We always appreciate the encouragement because it's part of the motivation for continuing to do stuff like this. Before we go, one thing happening tomorrow across the country and in College Station is the Collegiate Day of Prayer.
Yes.
So this has been in the workings for a few years. I went 2 years ago. I wasn't able to go last year. But the original heart is, look, we want to pray and get college students praying for college campuses and for God to work on college campuses.
Right.
It's an amazing thing. For those listening and listening before the Collegiate Day of Prayer, please go. For College Station, it is today this is last year.
It was at Antioch last year, right?
Yeah, it was at Brazos Fellowship my freshman year. Anyway, search the National Collegiate Day of Prayer. It's tomorrow, Thursday, February 28th.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. It's in College Station, the one I went to. It's all the churches there, different congregations, different denominations, like Antioch, Grace Bible, Brazos Fellowship, and you get to meet believers and you pray and worship together.
Right.
It's amazing. It really embodies the unity that we're called to have in the body of Christ. And you're praying, and God promises, where two or more gather in my name, there I am among them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing to pray for God to work on college campuses and to be a part of that. So I encourage all of you to go. And if not this year, next year, and be praying, at least tomorrow night, pray along if you're not there.
Right.
Physically, pray along in spirit that God would work on college campuses.
Yeah, it is an incredible day and an incredible cause, and it's really, really cool to see, like you said, just a group of believers just gathered to pray.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's going to do it for episode 29. For Luke Heaton, I'm Mitch Mason. Thank you guys so much. And until next week, episode 30, y'all take it easy and have a good one.